Hey there, friends. My name's Carpo, and today I'm going to tell you how to fix the economy. Of course, that's a bold statement, and I'm well aware that most of you will realize I'm joking, but some might take that seriously. So, no, obviously, there's no fixing the economy. In fact, there is no the economy. There are several different factions, different countries, different regions within each country, and different economies within those regions. But what I want to talk about here is my personal solution to the problem of capitalism. Now, I hear a lot of people throw around socialist ideas. I hear a lot of people throw around liberalism or libertarianism, many of these different isms, which never really get to the point or the heart of the issue. The fact is, human beings are innovative. We want to create, we want to invent. We want to, be inspired and create new things. So, once in a while, as I'm getting ready to, or thinking about a particular topic, something will pop into my head like did earlier. And I started thinking about a simple gyroscope within a cellular phone, something that we overlook. The ability to turn your phone and have it turn with you and know where you're at and your position of your phone relative to gravity. It's a very simple thing most people overlook. Somebody invented that. Now, the person who invented that likely didn't get the recognition that they deserve. It was most likely a scientist who was probably paid well for his work, but he was likely not a billionaire. And then I thought about all the different components within a cellular telephone. And I thought, there are so many different parts in there that come from so many different regions and places, so many different scientists, thousands, if not millions of scientists who had worked on all the different components. Not just the actual chips themselves, but the silicon and the components that go into it, how to refine them, how to purify them, the chemists involved in processing some of these materials, even the miners who take the raw material out of the ground, who might get paid pennies a day. And I thought, who gets credit for these innovations? People like Steve Jobs, right? And hey, you can give these people credit for the work that they put in. It's one thing to invent something, it's another to compile all these inventions into something that's functional and works great. And I think that that's awesome. Except what we're forgetting is the history of hard work, labor, and invention that went into all the components, which mean that your ancestors, one of your ancestors likely partook in the invention of some part of a cellular phone in one way or another. Now, who gets credit for the invention? Of course, the inventors, the companies, the corporations. A woman invented Kevlar back in the 50s or 60s. I don't recall her name, obviously, but she didn't get credit until recently for her invention. In fact, a lot of women inventors, their ideas were accredited to men, especially in the past. But it's not just that, because a lot of the men, then, their ideas were stolen and accredited to other inventors. People like Edison. The controversy surrounding many of the inventions of the 18th and 19th centuries, and 20th centuries, which were stolen and robbed, and ideas were, basically plundered from one another. Which brings us to intellectual property rights, and kind of the central theme of this conversation. There's this idea that if we protect business by having intellectual property rights, patent protection, and copyright protection, that these things are good for business. And at one time this was true, especially back in the snake oil days, which never really went away, but metaphorically the snake oil has always been on the market. There will always be somebody selling a lesser quality product. Even today, with all the laws and regulations and rules we have against counterfeits and knockoffs, we still have fake Versace bags all over the place. So what do you do about it? Nothing. There's nothing you can do. In fact, the knockoff market is one of the most lucrative in the world. Which brings me to the two different types of business we can move to into the future. There can be purpose-driven business, and there can be shareholder-driven business. What we have right now, and what we're convinced is capitalism, is a shareholder-driven business, which seeks to increase the bottom line at any cost. And the shareholders want to see results. A purpose-driven business is one that isn't about profits. It's just about survival and providing a product that people can use, and doing it in a way that's sustainable, that's non-damaging to the environment and to the people that it serves. An honest business, which there just aren't enough of them out there. Every little fee that the large corporations charge you, Verizon, Xfinity, the story goes on. So there's this bullshit idea we've been fed for a long time. It's the same as the idea of a trickle-down economy. That, well, you can't tax the big corporations because then that will cost the worker. If you just let them have more money and give the billionaires more money, that will trickle down. And that's an actual theory, back from the Reaganomics bullshit days. Trickle-down economics is a complete facade. It was never true. It will never be true. The more money people have, the more they consolidate. So it's not the scientists or the inventors or the creators or the innovators that get rich. It's the people who exploit them. Meaning that patent protection isn't helping the actual workers. It's only helping the billionaires, and it always has been that way. If you're aware that there's Mickey Mouse Disney has come, it's one of the perfect examples of copyright protection. They have gone before the government 2 or 3 times and lobbied to have Mickey still under patent protection. Disney is the company that extended copyright protection because it wasn't long enough for them. And they are one of the richest companies in the world. These companies have sway on the government. So it's not that we need more government rules about businesses and how to do business and more protection for companies. We honestly, in my belief, need to have less government oversight in business for small business. In other words, it doesn't mean that you can't have antitrust laws, doesn't mean that you can't break up big companies or still deal with large corporations. But the regulations that are put on small business to even start up, and the type of taxation that they face compared to the large companies, even one small lawsuit from a larger company that feels threatened by a smaller company can put the smaller company out of business. Because it could be a frivolous lawsuit, but it doesn't matter. The big company has enough to spend on lawyers, and their long-term gains will compensate for any expense they have. Meanwhile, it will break the average consumer, the average businessman. Intellectual property on another realm, what's happening right now with that jab that people are getting. Let's just say, I don't even want to say the word because I had a video get a strike and deleted for even talking about that thing that people are getting, but that thing people are getting to protect them against this other thing that's been happening. Apparently, they're not waiving the right. They've been fighting to not waive the rights to patent protection on this life-saving medicine that many countries don't even have access to yet. Meanwhile, the U.S. has a surplus, and it's just crazy out there that there are actually people who want to allow pharmaceutical companies to continue to retain rights on something that was emergency funded by the government, meaning that your tax dollars paid for it anyway. It's all about retaining rights. And so, as far as these companies, that's their whole thing, is retaining rights to their business. So this idea that smaller businesses will make knockoff products or that lesser products will get on the market, it's just a facade. It's a way to keep the big companies in business. Yes, knockoff products will be there. They always have been. What it will do is if they say the market works itself out, then it must work itself out. That means that if you eliminate patent protection, you eliminate patent trolls, you might just get to a point where the small companies are able to get a foothold, and then the people will go back to purchasing things in a way that, is conducive to the real world. In other words, don't just order something from Amazon and assume you're getting the product you want. Half the products on Amazon these days are knockoffs as well, because they have third-party sellers that can sell you anything, repackaged, outdated. There's just no trust anymore. So if your product is good, you don't need protection. You will find customers. So The only real corporate welfare out there that people can see, the bailouts, trillions of dollars to the banks and to these conglomerate companies, the huge corporations that took a majority of the bailout money and the tax, the free money that was given out for COVID, most of it, the relief money, was taken by these large corporations. It is disgusting. The middle class is faltering because of it. People are still in denial about this. They still support this capitalist idea as if capitalism is working for them. Maybe for a few it is. But if you look at the big picture, it's falling apart because there are too many regulations put on the small guy and definitely not enough on the big ones. So my only solution here is, since the big guys aren't going to take a regulation, just eliminate the regulations for everyone. Let people make whatever products they want. Let somebody write a book that somebody else wrote if they want. Allow plagiarization. See how it turns out, because it couldn't be any worse than it is today. My thought is that if all these protections were removed, people would be way more cautious about the way they shop, who they buy from. You know, right now we just trust that corporations are doing the right thing. And like I said, even Amazon, half the products you get might not be what you think they are. So what do we do? How do we protect the middle class? My thought is this, a couple final notes. I don't believe in removing all protections. I would say end patent protection unless that patent is being actively produced and used right now. Meaning if there's a patent on a product and a company is producing it, sure, that's fine. You can keep a patent for a period of years, decades, that's fine. But once something has been produced for several years, it should be allowed into the public domain. And also, if it's not being produced, and this is bigger than people might realize, there are these people called patent trolls. These are companies that over the past several decades have bought up and created patents on anything you can imagine. To give you an example, there was a lawsuit from somebody who sued one of the first email companies by saying, well, we have a patent on an electronic transfer of mail information through an electronic medium. You can get a patent on something that vague. And the whole patent was bought not to create anything, but to wait till somebody else did, wait till their company got off the ground, and then to launch in and attack them. If you Google patent trolls and you see how many of these there are, you'll see how horrible it has been for these small businesses. They have really worked hard to start themselves up, and they just get completely shut down. These same patent trolls aren't going to mess with a large company, large corporation. So the patent protection only works for the large corporations. It does not protect the small guy at all. People will steal your idea, and it's unfortunate, but that's just the world we live in. And as far as the copyright limits, just remember, I think, 20 years is more than enough of a copyright protection for a book. But, that's to each his own. Books are a different story altogether. But when we're talking about innovative products, people don't want to go out and innovate new things because they know their ideas are going to be stolen. They know they're not going to be paid well for them. They know that somebody else has a patent. Imagine somebody gets a patent on a product, and by the way, you don't have to prove your product exists before you get a patent. This is an important fact. You don't have to actually invent the product yet. You just have to show the idea. And this has to stop. Because if a person spends all this time inventing a product, they might find out there's already a patent on it. And there's nothing they can do with it. Even if it's a life-saving medical device or something else, they can buy the patent if the person's willing to sell it, but more often than not, it's just unfeasible. Because the average person starting a business is struggling and working hard to make it work the first few years. I'm disgusted by the way that this capitalist system works. Yeah, I'm a liberal, but hey, I still have some understanding of capitalism. It's not that I'm throwing it all out. I don't believe that money is evil or that, people shouldn't make a profit. If people want to be rich, let them be rich. But don't hold back the middle class so people can be even richer by protecting intellectual property rights and patents on bullshit products. And just remember, our government pays for a lot of this. Much of the research that has been done into these products, even products in your cell phone, in your computer, things like GPS, satellites, these things were funded by government, by military. GPS satellites were put up there by the military originally, which is why anyone can get access to them. which should be the way for a lot of things. But it seems like many doors are closing, and it makes it harder for the average person to feel like they even have a say. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you all next time. Be well.